Welcome to the Indie Film Hustle Podcast, episode number 180. There's never been a better time in history to make films, to make content, to make your dream come true as a filmmaker, as a storyteller, as it is now. Mongo Wilder.
Broadcasting from the back alley in Hollywood, it's the Indie Film Hustle Podcast, where we show you how to survive and thrive as an indie filmmaker in the jungles of the film biz. And here's your host, Alex Ferrari.
Welcome, my indie film hustlers, to another episode of the Indie Film Hustle Podcast. I am your humble host, Alex Ferrari. Today's show is sponsored by Video Blocks. Now, guys, when I was shooting my show for Legendary Pictures, and I did that 96 pages in 4 days, I actually got into post and we used a lot of stock footage, stock sounds, and even some graphics from Video Blocks. They are an amazing resource. With your membership, you are granted the rights to use that footage forever, in perpetuity, on any projects you want to. It's remarkable. So it's nice to know that you don't have to worry about footage or sound or music that you're downloading and using on your film, your show, your projects, your web series, whatever it is, and you can sleep easy knowing that you don't have to worry about any rights. So if you want to try a 7-day free trial, and by the way, anything you download during those 7 days is yours to keep. And if you decide to stay, you get 84% off the yearly membership. It is well worth it, guys. Trust me, if you do a lot of production, it is something you really need. So just head over to videoblocks.com/hustle. That's videoblocks.com/hustle. So before we get into the show today, guys, I have some insanely great news on the This Is Meg front. You guys know my journey with This Is Meg and getting it out there and making it and distributing it and everything we've done. And, you know, the news I'm about to tell you, I was floored when I heard. This Is Meg was sold to Hulu. Hulu bought This Is Meg as a Hulu original, as a Hulu movie. And I cannot tell you how humbling and how amazing that is. I'm so excited. Jill and I went over the moon about it. It was one of our goals to get into Hulu, and we got in. And I can't believe it. And we're so excited, so grateful for everybody's support. And it's going to be released October 15th on Hulu. So if you have Hulu, you'll be able to watch it on Hulu after October 15th, and it'll be there for a year. So watch it. Send it to your friends. Tell everybody about it. It's really exciting. And I'll get more information about exactly, links and all that kind of stuff as that information comes forward. But I just wanted to share that with you guys because, you guys are family. You guys are part of the tribe, and I want to share the good news with you guys. And all sorts of other good stuff is happening with This Is Meg. The sales on iTunes have been doing really well. Same thing with Vimeo and Amazon. And I'm going to be doing a big kind of wrap up in the next few months about my entire experience with self-distributing This Is Meg, the good, the bad, and the ugly in regards to the distribution of Meg and getting it out there and what I wanted to happen, what I expected to happen, and what's happening, and the wonderful surprises along the way. So I will be talking about that in the months to come. I just want to give This Is Meg to get all the numbers in and really dissect how we finished off with This Is Meg. And it's not really finishing off because it's going to be on there online forever as long as the internet's running, and it's going to continuously make revenue for me and Jill. But I wanted to kind of settle in and really get a good idea of all the platforms and how we're doing. So again, just wanted to share that amazing news with you guys. So today we have on the show Veronika Lee from Backstage magazine. They are the leading resource for casting your films, your television shows, your series, your streaming series, everything. And it's a topic that I've not covered very often here on the podcast. Actually, I've never covered this topic on the podcast, which is casting, which is something that a lot of filmmakers and industry people in general think like as a side thought, like, oh yeah, we got to get a casting agent to do casting. And it's such an important part of the process. When you cast properly, you don't have to direct that hard. Like they said, casting is 90% of directing. And it's true. I've worked with, amateur and more green actors And I've also worked with the highest end professionals. And trust me, when you work with these really amazing, highly trained actors, it makes your life so easy as a director. So I got Veronika from Backstage to come on the show and really talk about the process of casting, how you can cast for independent films, how to get the most bang for your buck when it comes to casting an actor, all sorts of things we cover in this episode. It is truly kind of a masterclass in casting and how to cast a film. And of course, as members of the Indie Film Hustle Tribe, you guys get a free casting package worth $100 on Backstage.com. You can use all of their services for free. $100 package. So cast your movie for free. All you got to do is use the coupon code HUSTLE when you check out and get that free package. My gift to you all. Without any further ado, please enjoy my conversation with Veronika Lee from Backstage Magazine. I'd like to welcome to the show Veronika Lee from Backstage. Thank you so much for doing the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
You are the first casting person we've ever had on the show, and I can't believe I've neglected casting so long on the show. And it's something I guess happens very often in the film business. People kind of forget about the casting process.
Well, casting people are like very like secret squirrels, you know, they're like very clandestine and secretive. And I think they try to maintain a low profile, probably because we're being contacted by actors like all the time.
That's true. And if there's a group of people that are eager to get into the business more than indie filmmakers, I'm going to throw out actors and writers probably, but actors.
You have no idea. Like I remember when I was first starting in the business, I was doing casting for M. Night Shyamalan in Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. And like literally people were looking up. I mean, oh my God, I'm like giving my age away right now, but people were like looking up my family in the phone book and calling them and asking if they could be in his movie.
It's I can only imagine.
Can you imagine? Like my grandparents were like in their 80s and they were like, what? Veronika's doing what?
Who's doing what? What?
And night? It's nighttime? So yeah.
That's insane. And because I just could imagine it's on when you're working on those kind of high level projects, actors are just desperate to get into these because they know if they could get in a movie like that, it could launch a career. It can take off. So there's very high stakes there. But I guess you guys are one of the many gatekeepers. But as far as the casting, you are the main gatekeeper.
Well, I think it's always like it's great to have a casting director on your project if you can afford one or if you have a friend that's willing to do it, because it is going to eliminate some of that that push. You know, that actors are going to want to reach out to you as a director directly. So it's like you kind of need the gatekeeper between you and the acting community, not to diss actors, but they can be very persistent.
That's a really PC word you just used there, persistent.
Yeah. I don't want it to come off as I hate actors, but it's just it's like I said, and casting directors, we're known for being a little prickly, we can be scary and intimidating. I mean, I think that's why I've done well in the position.
Yeah, I mean, and I haven't even asked a question yet. We're just kind of riffing right now. But
sorry,
no, it's not. It's just completely. That's excellent. But when I cast, I generally try to be as nice as humanly possible to the actors because it's just brutal. It's a brutal process.
That's very nice of you.
I try to because as a director, I'm just in there and then it's a cattle call a lot of times. They're just actors coming in and out for a commercial or a music video or for a feature or something like that. And, they're out there and they've been, they're trying, and I try to be as nice as possible. But sometimes the second they walk in the room, I as a director, I go, they're not right for the part because they're not physically what I'm looking for the character or for the part, and it has nothing to do with them or their skill. And that's brutal. That's a brutal experience for somebody because it has nothing to do with them as a person or their talent as an actor. I'm like, you happen to be 5'10" and white. I'm looking for 6'10", and Asian. You know,
Yeah. Well, that's one thing that I'm trying to impose upon indie filmmakers now a bit more, is that to open your mind with casting.
Mm-hmm. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show.
As much as possible. A lot of times, like you'll have somebody like hell bent that it's got to be like this hot, 5'10" blonde dude with all these muscles, and it's like the role doesn't really require that, So right. I'm always like really, especially like in this day and age where they're really stressing diversity casting and things like that. If you don't get married to an idea of the visual, I think that opens up your mind to a lot more talent. But speaking to what you were saying about being nice, it's like my friend and a fellow casting person, Eli Cornell, we actually still work together. He's amazing. Like he's one of the few people in the industry that I've met and I admire because, in the casting room, he's so kind and so accommodating. And he's like this like 6'2" dude from Michigan. Like you'd think he'd be like really like intimidating. He's just the nicest person and just so empathetic towards actors. And I think that goes such a long way. I struggle with it myself because after you've seen so many people, you're like, oh my gosh, but that's a really good quality to have. Just be nice.
That's a general quality that you should have in the business because people in general want to work with nice people as opposed to asses.
Right.
As a general statement.
Well, wasn't it Conan O'Brien who said, if you work hard and you're nice to people, you'll go far? Like, I believe that.
It's absolutely true. It's absolute. Look at Ron Howard, considered one of the nice guys in the business.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I've met people that have worked with him and just have nothing but nice things to say.
No question. I mean, being nice is a big underestimated quality as a filmmaker,
right.
An actor, writer, whoever.
And actors are sensitive. Like we're talking
what?
sensitive. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
And they're not dramatic at all.
No. Stoic, practically Winston Churchill's out there.
All right, so let's ask a couple questions. So how did you get in the business? First of all, what made you kind of jump into how did you get into the casting and how did you get into business in general?
Okay. I'm trying to think of a short way to say this. So I actually went to college for English literature at UPenn, and I jumped into graduate school. I am like a big literature nerd, but I also was obsessed with like film. I would use it when I was a TA, teacher's assistant, to teach people about writing, kind of as a tool. And I was really obsessed with Hitchcock and Truffaut and stuff when I was in college. And I don't know if you know this, but the world out there for a writer right now isn't really that hot of a commodity. Journalism. My first job was working at like a small newspaper just outside Philadelphia. And believe it or not, it went under.
No.
And,
it's amazing. It's amazing.
And, so I went back to my my college and I was like, hey, like I really need a job. And there was an internship available for this Jamie Foxx movie. And this is so horrible. I swear I can't even remember the name of it.
Oh, God. It's in
Philadelphia.
Yes.
It's Gary Gray was the director.
Yes. It was a really bad. I think it was like Booty Call.
No, it wasn't Booty Call.
Okay. It wasn't Booty Call.
Yeah,
it was one of those movies in the 90s when Jamie Foxx was.
It was 2000. It was 2000. It was Gerard Butler, Jamie Foxx, Law Abiding Citizen.
Oh, okay. Well, okay, that one. I thought it was like going far back in Jamie Foxx's world.
No. So,
Law Abiding Citizen. Yeah, of course. That was a good film.
And the first day, like I got an internship in the script department, and literally I knew nothing about film sets. Okay, so I'm like walking on the set, walking around with a copy of the script. And I'm getting in the shot, and the DP is like, you know what? Duck down behind that box. And I was like, excuse me? And he said, duck down. I ended up having to duck down behind that box for 4 hours while they got the shot. And he was like, that'll teach you not to walk into a film set.
You were fresh off the boat, my dear.
Yeah, fresh off the boat. I was horrified. So then after that, long story short, you know how it goes in film. You just end up getting hired on the next one.
Yeah. If you're good and you weren't a complete ass and you did a competent job and they like you, they're like, well, I don't want to have to deal with someone new. I know this person. Let's just keep bringing them on. Exactly.
And so I got brought on to M. Night Shyamalan's, oh God, forgive me, The Last Airbender.
I'm sorry about that. Sorry about that.
Yeah. My dad liked it. My dad liked it. He saw my name in the movie theater and he was like so proud. And I'm
so
like,
he's the one that saw it. He's the one that went to the theater.
My dad was the one person who went to the theater and saw it. So I shouldn't knock it because Knight is actually like a really nice person. But from there, I just went on to work on a Tony Danza show, which is a whole nother podcast. Mm-hmm. And no offense to Tony. Yeah. And then I moved to New York and got I did casting full time.
Very cool. And
whereas Last Airbender, I was just doing extras casting and day players, maybe some stunt people sprinkled here and there, and then so began the New York chapter of my life.
And then you started working, and you worked on films like Dark Knight Rises and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, some fairly large movies.
Yeah, a little bit. I think people might have heard like Marty Scorsese or
yes. So did you work with Marty?
I did help with The Wolf of Wall Street.
Oh, that must have been well. I mean that. And look, I would fetch him coffee. So
I don't. It's funny because my grandfather was really excited to see that in the theater, and I was like, nope, no, not this one. No, I don't think it's appropriate.
Not to watch The Wolf of Wall Street in the theater. No, don't.
I think he would have had a heart attack.
So what is the process of, can you take us through what it's like to help cast or be part of the casting team of a huge, $200 million movie like Dark Knight Rises or a big tentpole like Teenage Mutant or Wolf of Wall Street?
Okay, well, maybe I guess the best examples I can give are like from Ninja Turtles or like this CBS show, Person of Interest.
Great show. I missed that show.
Oh, thank you.
I love that show.
I also did not know anybody else watched that.
Oh, God. My wife and I was addicted to that show. We loved it.
Wow. Okay, we're going to have to talk about that some other time. Let's focus on Person of Interest. That might be the best way to describe.
Okay.
So one, you will never sleep the whole duration of the show. It just won't happen. Okay. You get a breakdown of most of what I did was extras, but on Person of Interest, I also did day players, and I also did some stunt stuff, like passing on people that I thought could be good to the stunt coordinator and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So you have these production meetings, and Person of Interest was like J.J. Abrams, and he'd be on the big screen up there, talking to us like the Wizard of Oz, and Jonathan Nolan just sitting across from me. And I'm not really a starstruck person, but I love The Dark Knight. Yeah. So just thinking wow, cool. But they kind of, when the script, is kind of about to be ready, they make a list of all the characters that they want and what you can expect. With day players, honestly, it was literally, there was the principal casting office, and they would handle it to 7 or 8 o'clock at night. And then I would end up getting the people that they added to the script at 11 o'clock at night.
Oh, right then.
Yeah.
Jeez.
So I basically got the last minute stuff, and it was just constantly like I said, you just don't sleep. Mm-hmm. And sometimes on a high paced thing like that, it just ends up being who's available.
Isn't that crazy? People are dying to get on a show, but at a certain point you're like, look, can you show up tomorrow at 9 a.m.?
Yeah, 9 a.m. It's more like, can you be there at 4 o'clock a.m.?
Yes.
Done.
Yes.
Booked.
You're booked.
I think you can act. Yeah. Can you read this line for me? Okay, cool. You're hired.
That's the way it works, isn't it? It is.
Yeah. And I admit, like, whenever, I don't have a theater background. I mean, my theater background is like, I'm an Oscar Wilde nerd. But like, I don't know a lot about acting, but I do know how people work with one another. And I do think that I have a good sense of how people can take direction.
Mm-hmm. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show.
Which I think, okay, bringing it back to the indie film scene, I think it's really important to, in whoever you're auditioning, to make sure that it's somebody who can follow instructions. Like, I'm talking, can they get to the place where you're holding the audition on time? Can they, bring the prepared materials? That's a good sign. Obviously, you want somebody who can demonstrate like some range for you in case you want to take a scene in a different direction. Mm-hmm. And I guess also just somebody that can really take your direction. If you're, the director dealing directly with the person, you just want to make sure that this is going to be somebody that you can get along with, because you don't want somebody like, I always say to an indie film, have a backup.
Interesting.
Have a backup, because especially if you're not paying people.
Oh yeah.
Like if it's deferred payment or, you can't guarantee that there'll be anything but snacks and beer. Have a backup, because actors do get called for, it might be the day of your first shoot day, and they get called for their first $800 commercial. Mm-hmm. So you want to have somebody on the back burner. And I would be honest with that person. I would be like, hey, I really like you, and I think you could be great for this film. I'd love to have you, on set in case things don't work out. Just be kind and be honest, Mm-hmm. I just think it's good to always have actors, even extras, in your back pocket.
Just in case, because it's true. Like once you've gathered all the troops, you're spending the money mm-hmm. to be there for the day, and all of a sudden your main actor's not there, or even a part of a part of the ensemble is not there, and then now what do you do? Like right. you're screwed, and you lost all that money. So better to have a little bit of an insurance policy in the background, just right. in case.
And also, I'm going to say right now, don't cast your friends. Which is
the opposite of what Mark Duplass says.
Yeah, right. I really like, it stinks when you see like a really good script, and like I go to film festivals all the time, and like I see so many great scripts, but I'm like, man, this person hired everybody that they went to middle school with, which is cool. But none of them have any acting training. And it hurts the production.
I mean, I'll tell you, I've worked with some of the highest end, Oscar-winning actors, and I've also worked with people straight off the boat. Mm-hmm. And man, it's so much easier when you have a good actor.
Yes,
it's so much. It makes your job as a director you just sit there and go, "I need you to do this." Okay, and they're done in a take or two, and we can move on. It's so wonderful to work with. Yeah. Good actor. So it's underestimated by a lot
also, it's a learning experience for you.
Oh, God,
if you set your sights on working with, really talented people in the future, you want to learn how to direct an actor properly. Mm-hmm. Just with your friend from, your Blink-182 days or whatever, like I can't even imagine like my friends and any of that. They're like, I don't know. So
yeah, I know. I completely understand. It's I've worked with. I've actually never cast friends. I don't think on any of my projects. Thank God. But you
deserve an award for that.
I've actually never cast. And if I have cast a friend, they're actors. They're real actors. Mm-hmm. So I've never actually cast a non-actor in a role that I can even remember. So I knew that much.
But sometimes it works out. Like my friend Rob Cousinow, he is a Detroit-based filmmaker, and he did this project with his brother that's going to screen. Don't quote me where it's going to screen, but mm-hmm. I don't know what it was, but his brother, when I watched the screener, I'm like, this guy's really got something.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think this guy really should pursue being an actor, but that rarely happens for me. I'm rarely like, wow, you should really stick with this.
It happens every once in a while, but yeah. But generally speaking, try to get some high-end professional actors, and a lot of times they don't have to be SAG actors. There are a lot of good actors who are not SAG.
Right. I think that's a big misconception that you have to hire a SAG actor for them to be a quality actor.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of actors choose to stay non-union because they want to do commercials, which are not SAG.
Right.
And commercials, that's where the money is.
Yes, it is.
So, and also to me, the superior catering.
Yes.
I've been on the Wolf of Wall Street set, and I've been on a commercial set for like Aetna, and I'm like, I don't know. The Aetna catering is way better
because they only have to have that catering for 2 or 3 days.
Exactly.
Not for 6 months.
Right. Exactly. You know,
some of the best catering I've had has been on TV shows. I found
really.
Yeah, I was on working on 24. Or not working, but I was visiting the set of 24 and Castle and those kind of shows. And I was like, wow, this is really good. But mind you, I was coming from indie world, which, catering is generally the spinning wheels of death, which are pizza.
Yeah.
So
I like pizza.
I do.
I think I'd rather have pizza than like, I hate it when you go to Crafty and you see like just sandwich bread and like peanut butter and jelly and you're like, that's all we got today. Right.
So can you tell me a little bit about your work with Backstage, and can you tell us a little bit about Backstage?
Yeah. So I am kind of like a jack of all trades at Backstage. I really focus on helping like the indie film community tap into, their casting needs. We have a platform where we have thousands of actors who are registered with our site, and we provide casting tools for filmmakers. Obviously, we get a lot of the higher profile stuff too. Like we do, like right now we have casting notices up for like the new Al Pacino film and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. But, we also give indie filmmakers the opportunity to, just directly connect with actors. So I kind of advise people on like how to make a breakdown, that kind of stuff. Because some people are just lost.
Oh, well, that's a really good question. How do you do a breakdown? And explain what a breakdown is, because a lot of filmmakers have no idea.
Okay, so you have a script and you have characters in your script. And yes, they have dialogue, but the actors auditioning for your roles, they need to know the backstory of the characters. They need to know, pertinent information that's relative to the project. I mean, I don't know about you, how comfortable you are about sharing your scripts, mm-hmm. Before your project is like actually shooting. But a lot of people, you're not going to have an actor come in for an audition and read your entire script. Right. You might do that for callbacks, but breakdown is really important because I feel like they also can really, I get it. Like in the film world, a lot of us just want to type something up and put it out and just throw it out in the universe and not care.
Right.
I can't even tell you, like, I know a breakdown that was typed on an iPhone. I know it. When I see a lack of detail, I'm like, come on, man. Like, you want some good people on your project. You got to give them some meat. So I think being descriptive, but to the point is really important. So, like, for example, I'll just say, like, it'll say main character. I'll just say Oscar Wilde, mm-hmm. Charming, witty, clever, is a closeted gay man in Victorian England. I don't know.
Fair enough.
That kind of thing. Yeah. Like
as much detail as you can about the character without going crazy.
Right. Without going crazy. Yeah. Don't go too overboard. But that's part of my job is like, like I'll see a breakdown and I'm like, hey, okay, we're not having the actors reread War and Peace here. Okay. Right. Like I get your vision and your passion, but let's cut it a little bit,
Right. Exactly. Now, I wanted to ask your opinion, plus or minuses of using a casting director versus casting directly using like a service like Backstage.
Well, like I mentioned before, I think, a casting director, if you can afford one, is great because they are the gatekeeper.
Mm-hmm.
I would say, especially though, if I don't know, I guess I'm kind of thinking as I'm talking to you more about indie filmmakers.
Mm-hmm.
I think, when it comes to shooting like a scene in a restaurant and you need 25 extras, you really don't want to handle that yourself when you are the filmmaker or you are the producer.
Mm-hmm.
So
we'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show.
In those situations where you're going to need background, I would definitely want a casting director. If you're really pushing for like a project that you want to enter into a festival, hire a casting director who knows, to help you. You're lucky if you have one as a friend.
Right.
But, to do it yourself though, like let's say you're just at the phase where you're like kind of making shorts and, to me, and I don't want to upset the CSA, Casting Society of America, because I think casting directors are amazing and they don't get enough shout outs. But, I think you can do it yourself.
And nowadays you can.
Yes. Nowadays you can do it yourself on the level of, an indie project. But like I said, if you want really some also I should say too, like a casting director, probably the biggest trait of them is like we're a Rolodex of faces and talent that you're constantly like matching up to opportunities, so maybe you don't get out to see, the theater all the time and you don't know what actors are out there and what their capabilities are, but casting directors kind of have to maintain that knowledge of who's doing what. And, you never know if this person could be like, hey, this person is really good. I saw them in a play. They'd be perfect for this project.
Now, would you agree though? And I've done it both. I've done direct and casting directors. Do you agree though, if you're trying to find a little bit higher echelon actor with maybe a little bit more markability, you really should go through a casting director unless you've got, unless you've a filmmaker who have 20 features under your belt or a producer who has 20 features under your belt and can call the agent directly. A casting director a lot of times has a direct relationship with these actors and kind of cuts out the middleman. So you can get to actors that are bigger using a casting director much easier than you trying to do it yourself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I do think what you're saying, like the upper echelon and stuff, but also I wouldn't underestimate like just the power of second and third opinions in a room when you're running auditions. I mean, you're a director or you're a producer, you're not without vision. You can tell when somebody is like giving a good reading. Now, yeah, absolutely. Those upper echelon actors, if that's what you're really trying to get, I would get a casting director, but I also don't, on the indie level, if you're trying to save time and money, I think, it can be done.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, how can an indie filmmaker's project stand out to actors when they're doing a casting call?
I think something I always hear from actors is that they are really into like meaty roles. Meaty, that is the word they use, even though most of them are vegan. No offense.
Especially here in California. Right.
But yeah, if you give great material or you've really invested a lot in this script, I think that will attract actors to your project. Also, if you have goals, if you have specific goals, like I'm aiming to get this into this festival. And that's another thing that I think like I always have like indie filmmakers talk to me that they film their project, but they're not really sure of what their goals are. And I'm like, maybe just do some research on film festivals and where you can get this thing screened before you even shoot your project maybe. I mean, I'm coming from the casting side, but also I do a bit of promotion for these kind of projects. So I feel like if you're telling an actor, hey, our goal is to get this in the, Atlanta Film Festival next year, that gives them, like I might be featured in something, and then that helps you negotiate kind of working for no pay and that kind of thing.
Right, exactly. And just on a side note, what's your opinion on the whole working for pay, working for no pay as actors are concerned? Because I find it that actors are generally one of the more abused, other than writers, are one of the most abused people in the system, in the business in general. And, they're just like, well, look, you're an actor. Do you want it on your reel or not? I'm not going to pay you anything. There's that attitude, but there's also like, hey, I can't afford to pay you something, but I'm just going to at least give you gas money. And a meal, so what's your opinion on how filmmakers should actually work with actors sometimes, even if they have no money?
If you have no money, the least you can do is provide them with a meal and buy them a drink after it's over, like if they drink,
yes.
Don't just, and treat them really well. And be sure. I can't believe how many times I encounter filmmakers who end up never even giving the copy.
Oh God.
That's so, come on.
Yeah.
This person did this for nothing. I always I talk to student filmmakers a lot, and I'm like, always give them the copy. This is what they're doing it for,
that's their payment.
Right. Exactly. But, I think if you can respect their time, I don't know. I have mixed feelings on it because I'm not, I'm from the 90s. I'm not the generation where we did a lot of free internships. If you did, it was use your discretion.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't do everything for free, especially if what did the Joker say? If you're good at something, don't do it for free.
Right. Exactly. Good.
That was my Heath Ledger Joker impression.
Yes, it's fantastic. Actually, it's uncanny.
Thank you. But yeah, I think use your discretion. That being said, actors, man, don't get stagnant. It drives me nuts when I see actors that are on Instagram all the time taking selfies and all this stuff. Dude, go to a class, go to a workshop, do a student film. Because if you don't use it, you lose it.
Mm-hmm.
You really do. So I would sprinkle in the unpaid work, and also you never know who you're going to meet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
you never.
That is the biggest nugget of gold. There is you never know who's going to be on set. And go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. Years ago, when Backstage used to be the industry trade publication, Brian De Palma, put an ad. He was I guess he was at NYU undergrad,
mm-hmm.
In Backstage looking for somebody to be in his student film. And this dude who just moved to New York named Bobby De Niro,
yes,
was
yep.
I'm not doing anything.
Yep.
I'll go. So what, you never know who you're going to meet.
Exactly. So, and look at that. Just because they're students now doesn't mean they're going to be students forever.
Exactly. That's also a major thing that I think about all the time. Especially if you're in New York and LA, hello, you have NYU, you have Firestein Graduate School of Cinema, you have UCLA. Come on. You think that nobody in there is going to end up directing things in the future? So
yeah, exactly. I wouldn't mind being the extra in that little sci-fi opera that Mr. George Lucas did back in the 70s. I'm sure he put out a casting for that.
He amounted to nothing. He's a nobody.
Yeah, he's not doing well at all. So let's say I'm a filmmaker and I want to use Backstage. Can you explain the entire process to me from start to finish on what I would do?
Okay. So you would go to www.backstage.com and click post a job.
Mm-hmm.
And it's pretty forms, and you kind of just fill out your name, who you are, what you're doing. You post your breakdown, which is really easy because it's just add a role
mm-hmm.
Type thing. And then exclusively for listeners of this show, at checkout, you can enter Hustle. Just Hustle,
mm-hmm.
and you get free unlimited casting.
Oh,
so,
what? That's crazy.
Yeah,
and I'll make sure to put the promo code in the show notes for everybody.
Yeah, thank you. But yeah, it's pretty painless, and so what happens is the ad or the casting notice goes live immediately, And then one of our casting editors within a few hours, goes through it and makes sure your breakdown's decent. And, we have some really dedicated people on our staff that will reach out to you and say, hey, you know what, this role is a little, it's a little thin. You might want to beef it up here. Mm-hmm. Because I'd say that all of us on staff, like, we really are advocates for indie filmmakers. So we're trying, to make sure that people get the most out of their casting calls, if that makes sense.
Okay. So then what's the next step in it? What happens? Headshots coming in, videos? What's the next process? We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show.
Yep. So we have a system where all the applicants, you'll be able to see, their headshots, their resumes, and we have an internal messaging system. So that way you can communicate with the actors without, and don't take any offense to this, actors, without giving them your personal Gmail account.
Because you don't want that sometimes.
Yeah. Like, there's just, I think, in this business, you have to have moments with your loved ones and your friends where you can shut it off. Mm-hmm. And when you have every actor under the sun having access to your Gmail account, kind of hard to do that.
Yeah. And in a lot of ways, and it's, again, I have such a deep respect for what actors do, but sometimes, there are different levels of actors, meaning that they don't understand etiquette, just straight up normal etiquette. Like, hey, dude, don't just yell at me. Don't just contact me without, who are you? I get that. It happens all the time through Facebook. With me, it's like this etiquette. Like, you just be nice and be understanding.
You know what? Do you think it's really just
No, it's everybody. It's everybody.
I think it's just this generation. It's like people don't have boundaries because of the internet. So I appreciate that Backstage gives you those boundaries.
So yeah, you have to. You do, and it's great that it does. It's really great that it does.
Yeah. And also, if you're like one of those people that gets a little bit weirded out by like people contacting you on Facebook or something, I always tell people, in your breakdown, include, please do not, reach out via social media channels. We will get back to you through the system or something like that, because, you got to protect your creative space.
And also, can I just say, if any actors are listening to this podcast, please don't just blanket send your headshot without anything to me or to a director or to a casting person who has no relationship with you. If anything, it's a turn off, and if anything, it'll hurt you if they ever see you again.
Yeah,
that's just, again, basic etiquette, just basic etiquette.
And also, it's like so many casting offices are going green now. Mm-hmm. Even agencies that they don't want the printed headshots and resumes. So be sure, like, if you're going to submit your headshot somewhere, look up the place where you're submitting and see if they actually want a hard copy, because a lot of people don't.
Not anymore. Again, you don't need it.
Right. You can have it in a cloud-based system, So yeah. And also, I get very paranoid about my tone. I don't want it to sound like I am being discriminating to actors. I mean, I'm so grateful to actors because I wouldn't have a job without them. And, I couldn't take, the levels of rejection that they face all the time. So I admire people that really stick with it.
Now, once all these headshots start coming in, what should filmmakers look for in the kind of pre-screening process?
Well, okay. One thing I do recommend is asking for a candid photo to be attached.
Yes. Sorry.
So I was on a show. I'm not going to say which show it was, but I had to find like this really attractive like bikini model for like a really featured scene, and like I had to find him later at night. And I'd never seen this woman before, and she submitted. And sadly, when she got to set, she looked nothing like her photograph, and they were not trying to be rude, but it was like, wow, she's really not attractive. People do Photoshop headshots very badly.
Yes.
So I like to tell filmmakers to leave a note that says like, please include a candid photo. Mm-hmm. Shots can be deceiving.
I always tell filmmakers, do not ever trust a headshot. Because
No.
never
No.
trust a headshot because it's an absolute lie.
Yeah.
And I've just seen it. I've had casting come in. I'm holding the headshot, and then I look at the person in front of me. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Like you're not
Right.
even remotely close to this image. So
Exactly.
that
And
candidate.
it's embarrassing for everybody involved. It's just
Yes.
embarrassing. Don't embarrass yourself. And like, I think people, I don't know, in my experience too, LA people have this really like idea of how physically attractive you need to be in films. And I think when you look at like how I guess how gritty filmmaking has become and how we've had such a push in seeing like real people like
Yes.
Steve Buscemi, who has crooked teeth and blotchy skin, dude can act.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think there's as much discrimination that way based on, you have to have like everything perfect. So be a little bit more competent actors.
Absolutely. And directors be a little bit more open to not just getting the blonde hair, blue eye. Not that there's anything wrong with them, but
Right.
But try to open it up because it's much more interesting. And a perfect, great casting choice that was not originally set up that way. Shawshank Redemption. Morgan Freeman was not, his guy was named Red. He was supposed to be an Irish guy with red hair. And
wow, I did not know that.
That's why it's called Red. That's why his character is called Red, because he was supposed to be red hair and white, Irish guy.
Okay.
And then Morgan showed up, and Darabont said, "Well, you're Red. You're Red." And he's like, and they even make a joke about it in the movie. He's like, "Why do they call you Red?" He goes, "Must because I'm Irish." And they just wrote that joke in because of it. But
oh wow,
he was opening up. But that was Darabont completely being open to the process and going, obviously Morgan Freeman is a better. It's perfect for this role, regardless if it was written like that or not. So always be open to casting, because you never know what's going to walk in the door.
And I just want to have a little bit of a plug on behalf of casting directors. We've talked so much about being nice. There is an indie film that is so dear to my heart called Casting By.
Yeah, I saw a trailer for that. I want to actually watch that.
Oh, please watch it. I wish that every filmmaker would watch it because honestly, so this woman, Marion Doherty, who has since passed, she was a pioneer in casting. Before, in the 1940s, it was pretty much studios just hired these actors who they thought were conventionally attractive and put them in every single role, regardless of talent. And Marion Doherty was really a big proponent of, I don't want to cast this guy because he might be, the most attractive person. I want to cast him because he's talented. Mm-hmm. And she ended up filling these roles that were she cast Dustin Hoffman in The Graduate. She discovered John Voight. She was really big on the New York law. Yeah, she's legendary.
Lethal Weapon. I mean,
right.
It's amazing what she did.
And she was never recognized, by the Academy. For casting directors are still not recognized by the Academy for, their contributions to film. And, the DGA has a really big problem with casting directors being called directors. Mm-hmm. I think it's semantics, man. They really contribute a lot to a film.
Right.
I don't care. Call me a casting bunny. I don't care. Just give me some credit,
Yeah, I'm gonna definitely put the trailer in the show notes because I want people to see it, because I actually want to see it, and I'll find out where it's available so people can watch it.
Yeah, I think you can get it on Amazon, and it just blows me away. And I feel like if you're a director and you treat just like we said in the beginning, just be nice, just be nice. Somebody call Taylor Hackford and tell him to be nice. He doesn't seem very nice in that documentary. You'll see.
Yes, I saw it. So, should filmmakers be picky during the pre-screening process, or should they? How should they handle that?
Okay. Well, if you get 1,000 people, I would not reach out to 1,000 people to bring them in for auditions. Mm-hmm. I would ask for a note, about why they're interested in the role. If somebody's cool, I think this would be fun. And, and they didn't really seem to read what you said, I might weed them out. Mm-hmm. If they have a resume, look at their resume. To me, I always see any kind of, this might be kind of old school, but I see any kind of formal training. That's to me, this actor has been invested in their craft. They take it seriously. So be on the lookout for that. Have they been hired before? You know, are they consistently doing things? Can you see that on your resume? And I think that's a good starting point. You know, I wouldn't, if I were on the indie level, like I wouldn't bring in that many people to read for you.
Be a little bit picky. So then, in other words, if you're in the indie level, depending on the scope of the part, you can be a little bit picky and start weeding people out if you get a large amount of headshots, which you probably will. So you should probably just, like, those are great things. Resume, training, send them a note. How do they react to that note? It's kind of like you're almost dating. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show. You know,
yes, it is like dating.
You kind of like have to weed out, like, you know, are they going to open the door for me? Are they going to, you know, are we going onesies or are we going splitsies? You know,
yeah,
you know, that says a lot about the rest of that relationship. So I think as filmmakers, we should actually do the same thing with potential actors, because guess what? You know, if it's a short, you might be with them for a week. If you're on a feature, you might be with them for 3, 4, 5 weeks. You really got to kind of set up that date properly before you move in together for a few weeks.
You know what's funny? Like, I read recently, so I can't believe I'm saying this in public, let alone on a podcast. Yes. I am a huge Lord of the Rings fan.
Okay. Well, you're a literature nerd, so that makes sense.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So, but I remember, like, when, you know, Lord of the Rings was first coming out, and how Peter Jackson in all of his interviews was like, I really stress that, you know, actors had to be nice people.
Yes.
Don't ask me to do a New Zealand accent. I can't do it. And then I just found out from Viggo Mortensen, like a few weeks ago, he was saying how horrible it was to work with Peter Jackson.
Really?
I was shocked.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm like, wow, he really put a big emphasis on, you know, hiring people that were nice that he could get along with. But I guess, you know, he didn't feel that he had to reciprocate it. Well,
and also, too, you have no understanding sometimes of the kind of pressure a man like that would have been under on a movie of movies of that scope. And no one had ever done anything like that. So I'm not defending Peter Jackson, but a lot of times people are like, oh, he's an ass or she's an ass. I'm like, you have no understanding what they're dealing with and what's happening to them. And sometimes, you know, good people can be asses. You know, it happens to the best of us. You know, it just depends on when you get them. But that's pretty damning testimony.
Yeah. But he did mention, he's like, well, if you notice, like Peter Jackson, everything he's done post Lord of the Rings has just been CGI'd the hell out. Yes. You know, and he's like, I think he's like delusional now, which I think, you know.
Well, when you go down that rabbit hole and you're surrounded by that for a decade, right, you kind of lose sense of reality. You know, and I get it. Like, if you're completely surrounded by the chocolate factory, you have no understanding that that's just not the way the world works. But it works in your world. So why wouldn't it?
Right.
You know?
Like, I don't know. I guess maybe speaking to the point earlier about not hiring your friends from 7th grade, still stay friends with them because they will keep you humble.
Yes, absolutely.
And remind you of who you were.
Yes.
You know?
Now, do you like video auditions, which I know it's a thing of the last, 5 or 10 years, or do you prefer in-person auditions instead?
I prefer in-person auditions, but, I know that the high-profile casting directors, people like Alan Lewis, really big, busy people, they like this video audition thing. I'm just averse to, I've seen so many bad self-tapes. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm just like, how you have to, like, turn your phone, horizontally so you don't get those black bars. Mm-hmm. It's like, or you send it as an attachment, that kind of thing. Like, that drives me nuts. Like, indie filmmakers, in your breakdown and your submission instructions, you should say, be sure to include your self-tape as a YouTube link so that you're not trying to download all of these things to your computer, because that can get really annoying.
Yeah, especially not with 1 or 2, but when you have 1,000. Vimeo link or YouTube link will suffice.
Yeah.
Now, how long should a typical audition last?
Well, I guess it would depend on the role.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're just auditioning like a day player, I would say, the first audition, it'll probably be the last audition. I would just do them, have them do maybe 2 or 3 versions of a read through from the scene they're going to be in. So that shouldn't take more than like 10 minutes. A lead role, you probably want to finesse that some more, see their range. So you don't want to take up too much of the actor's time either, because there's no guarantee that they're going to be hired yet.
Mm-hmm,
so, be respectful of that. And I honestly, I believe that like 10 minutes is like the sweet spot. Like, I think that by that time you should know.
Got it. Now, can you talk a little bit about callbacks and what they are and why they're so important?
Yeah. So callbacks are, it's process of elimination. So you have your first round of auditions. And you're like, okay, I like this person, I like this person. And, I hope that you have your pens and pencils out and you are making notes.
Or iPads.
I'm from the 90s. I'm going to still keep plugging paper. But yeah, like, especially if they end up bringing headshots and resumes, that's really helpful to scribble your thoughts and notes. This is something I really want to say though, because I see indie filmmakers do this a lot. Dude, don't audition people in your apartment.
Oh, it's so creepy.
It's so creepy.
It's
really creepy. Like, come on, man. Like Starbucks, like find a quiet corner, the library, somewhere public, like watch an episode of Dateline. Crazy things happen in this world.
Find a professional environment of some sort, an office, a conference room, or rent. If you're in LA or New York, you can rent a casting space by the hour.
Absolutely. And they're like Ripley Greer. I mean, they literally have rooms available for $15.
Yeah.
Like Ripley Greer is a studio space in New York. Like you can get it for an hour for $15. Like just be professional. Like, you don't want to horrify somebody. Oh, it happens all the time.
I know. It's horrifying. I've never cast in my house. I've never in all my years. I'm always
surprised. Who thinks this is a good idea?
And that's generally on the actor side. If the director is casting at their house, that's also a dating situation on the other side of the fence. Like, this is probably not going to go well. That says a lot about the production and says a lot about the filmmakers involved, that they're just not, their etiquette they're just not there yet. They're a little too fresh. And a little too green. So if an actor's listening to this and they say, "Hey, we want you to," unless it's Christopher Nolan and he wants you to come to his house, different conversation.
I don't know.
Well, Christopher Nolan, maybe. I don't know. I'd go, but that's just me.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe Roman Polanski's house. Stay away from that.
You know what? I didn't think about that. You know what? Just always go to a professional environment.
Yeah, always go to you never know. I'm telling you, I watch Dateline every Friday. Keep it fresh in your mind.
Now, what final tips do you have for filmmakers auditioning actors as a general statement?
Well, you did ask me about callbacks.
Yes.
I'll in brief to say, that is your final. And I would absolutely, if you didn't have someone with you before, have a second opinion there. That will help you really narrow down who you want for this role. And remember what I said, have backups, especially if you are a no budget production, because you never know if that's going to be that actor's first day on a big budget thing. So, that's my spiel about callbacks and backups.
Tips for filmmakers auditioning actors as how do you handle an audition if they've never auditioned anyone before? What's the process that a good audition should kind of go through? Okay,
well, I don't think that there should be too much personal back and forth, because this is a job. When you go on a job interview, for a regular corporate job, you don't sit there with the boss and ask them personal details about their life. Irrelevant. Like, an actor is like someone that you're going to have to mold for your role. Be as professional as possible and direct, maybe 2 minutes, because it's scary it's scary for them, it's intimidating, and, make them comfortable. Like I said, professional space. You can ask in advance if you prefer them to prepare their own monologue, which I'm not really into at the indie level, because let's say someone comes and they're saying Shakespeare for you.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, you don't want that.
Mm-mm.
You're not doing a period piece and you don't need to hear their British accent. You don't want somebody, coming with that. You could offer them suggestions in advance of monologues that might be similar. Like, let's say you were shooting something like Coen Brothers asks, you might say, prepare a monologue from I don't know, The Big Lebowski.
Mm-hmm.
So that way they're getting to the point of what you're doing.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show.
Because, they don't know. They don't know what you want. They're not mind readers. So, yeah, I would definitely.
I personally can't stand monologues. I can't, because it's not relevant to what I'm doing as this project, generally speaking, as a director.
So if you can provide, which is great, because Backstage, we allow you to upload the script sides,
yes,
if you'd like to. And so you can have your own script sides up there so that they can just come in, have it ready. Or you can do a cold read. Some people like cold reading. I think it makes a lot of actors nervous when they're new. It's a skill, though.
You have to have it as a skill as an actor.
Yeah, you have to have it. So
I always like sending sides. Sides is generally the way I like to do my castings. Like, send a side, let the actor prepare for a night, and come in, and that's it.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think that's good because, if I had my script sides, if I was writing a script and auditioning someone, I would give them 3 chances and 3 passes at the script, and maybe give them some direction, have them read through it the first way, the way that they would interpret it. Maybe the second way, can you make it, could you give me a little bit more sadness? Can you give me a little bit more anger in what you were just saying? And then do it a third way.
Got it. Yeah. Now, I have this one question, and this is a touchy subject, so I always wanted to hear a casting director's point of view on this. If you're casting a part that has nudity in it, that has male or female, either one, has some sort of nudity in it, or is an exposed part, meaning like a bikini, or they're half naked in one way, shape, or form. How do you kind of approach that situation in a casting environment? Because I've literally been in a casting where they were casting we were casting a film with strip clubs, and literally strippers would come in, and a bunch of them, and then you've got the horny dudes in the car. I'm like, dude, this is not. I felt so uncomfortable.
Well, I absolutely, in a situation like that. Yeah. You need a female casting director by your side, or a female producer,
someone there,
female friend, a female. And wow, this is one of my favorite subjects, because I have done some crazy nudity casting. I don't know if you saw The Dictator with Sacha Baron Cohen.
Oh my God, can you imagine? I could only imagine the casting you had to do.
Oh, you saw Busty Heart. You know who I'm talking about?
In the movie, I do. Yes.
Yes. So there were some requests from Sasha, who is such a cool person to work with. But wow, there was a lot of nudity casting. And I really do think in that regard, you need a woman's touch around for that. Even just, for legal purposes, man, you don't want somebody to be accusing you of something. But so what I will say in your breakdown, first of all, be totally upfront and clear about the nudity. Okay. Don't try to surprise anybody with that. Second, don't ask for pictures online. Don't do that.
I know.
I told you that I helped with The Wolf of Wall Street.
Oh God.
They were some Polaroids. That's what I'll say. They were Polaroid pictures that got submitted to Marty.
That's just not, what the hell?
Yeah. It was something. But yeah, don't request, we're going to need to see a photo of you topless. at the audition, I would reiterate, I just want to clarify that there is nudity required for this role. Never ask someone to take their clothes off at the audition.
Mm-hmm.
Just don't do that. Like, I think this is like a very touchy subject, because also it's like, we live in the United States of America. You can pretty much get sued for anything.
This is true.
So you don't want that to mess up your whole project. And it always comes down to, he said, she said, it's a job, it's professional.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes, like I'm saying, like in the case of Wolf of Wall Street, the director wants to know what he's getting in advance. So I recommend Polaroids for that. And I recommend a woman to handle that.
Mm-hmm.
I know that might sound kind of sexist, but actually casting is one of the few female dominated
fields in the business. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's also because I just was talking to this commercial casting director, Melanie Mack. She's awesome. And she was just saying how she just thinks, like, because women are so inherently nurturing that, we're kind of better at accommodating those spaces.
Mm-hmm.
But does that help you? Like, does that answer your question?
It does answer my question. So, and I guess a lot of that would go the same way with, like, if it's a bikini shoot, I guess you could ask for bikini pictures, but I don't know when you would ask for them, when it became appropriate. And I think a lot of the things you laid down, having a female handle it, makes the most sense. But a lot of that's,
also, that, you can request a candid full body shot. I would say inform to use respectable language. I mean,
yes.
I can't even tell you some of these backgrounds or these breakdowns that I see. I'm like, oh my God, dude, are you serious? Like, I hope this is not what you have like on your Tinder profile, because
oh my God.
But like, you can get a pretty good sense of someone's, figure if you say, do you have professional full body shots in form-fitting clothing?
That's a professional way of asking, hey, I need to see what you look like.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Because I know that's a really touchy subject for a lot of filmmakers, and especially early on in their career, they won't know how to handle that situation. And I wanted to kind of, have someone like you say, hey, this is the way you guys really should do this.
Yeah. And it really stinks because, like, my favorite genre of film is horror, and I love indie horror, and like, I like help people from Trauma. I don't know if you're familiar with them.
Lloyd's a friend of the show.
Oh, Lloyd. Okay. Hi, Lloyd. I love horror filmmakers. I love the genre, but let's face it is like the number one genre for topless women running around screaming their heads off.
Yes.
So I'm always like trying to help guys that make shows like that. Like, dude, you can't say that in your breakdown. Like, you can't. I can't even repeat the things that they say.
I got you. I got you completely.
They're harmless dudes. They're totally harmless. It's just, they're used to growing up with, Romeo and Juliet, and they think that's how you speak in a breakdown, and it is not. It's still professional.
Very cool. So I'm going to ask you same questions I ask all of my guests, and these are the Oprah questions, so prepare yourself.
Oprah.
Okay, so what advice would you give a filmmaker wanting to make their first feature film?
What advice would I give a filmmaker wanting to make their first feature film? Feature film? Is that what you said?
Yes.
Feature?
Yes.
Okay. Man, you really have to love it. Like, you really have to love what you're doing. Like, yes. You have to be in love with it. And I say that for anything in the arts. You're not going to last if you don't love it.
It's because it's too brutal.
It's brutal. It's hard. And, we talk about being nice to actors because they face rejection. You're going to face some rejection too. So be prepared for it, because we all think that our projects are awesome and, our blueprint in the world. But, there are people that are going to slam doors in your face, and just be ready for it, and remember why you love it, and remember why you're doing it.
I mean, look, Spielberg couldn't get Lincoln off the ground. It took him forever to get Lincoln financed. So if Spielberg's having issues, chances are you and I will probably have some issues getting our project off the ground.
Exactly.
Now, can you tell me what book had the biggest impact on your life or career?
What book? like on my life and my career. Wow, this is like Oprah. I would probably say Oscar Wilde's De Profundis, which is a love letter that he wrote in prison. I won't get into it, but I'll give you the radio friendly answer. Salinger's The Catcher in the Rye.
Got it.
And I can tie that into indie film because I really believe that you will never be able to successfully translate Salinger into a film. I truly believe that.
Right.
But also he blocked it. He was so against movies that he was like, no, like he legally set out before his death that none of his works could be made into film.
Interesting. Very interesting. Now, what is the lesson that took you the longest to learn, whether in the film business or in life?
Oh my gosh. These are good questions.
I appreciate it. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show.
How did Oprah have a job for so long? Like, here you go. A lesson. This is going to sound really like trite, but like honestly, like at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. Like just let things go. Nothing's worth, like just let it go. Life is way too short, man. Like it's really short. And the things that we get upset about, it's not worth it. Just let it go, you know?
That's a great advice.
And I feel like when I was working in the film industry, more hands-on than I am now, I was casting like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Person of Interest simultaneously. And I was so stressed. But, and this is, something that I really want to say to anybody, an actor or a producer or a filmmaker, whoever is in this business, don't take it personally. Don't, because, I really internalized a lot of the stress and I didn't need to, it's supposed to be fun. Making films is supposed to be fun. And, don't take it so serious. Why so serious?
Why another Heath Ledger?
Another Heath Ledger.
Now, what are 3 of your favorite films of all time?
Ooh, okay. I'd say probably number 1, Until the Light Takes Us, which is a documentary about the Norwegian black metal scene.
Nice.
I love documentaries and I love Norwegian black metal. So
you're an onion. You have multiple layers, Veronika.
Yes, I do. I'd say second is Let the Right One In.
Which one is that one?
Swedish vampire film with 2 kids.
Yes. They remade it. They remade it. Yeah, they remade it in English. Yes.
Which I never want to see it because it didn't need to be remade. Ugh, made me so mad.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say right now, just because it's off the top of my head, The Crow.
Oh, I love The Crow. Oh, yeah, so good.
Oh, maybe that's tied with like The Dark Knight.
Okay.
It was like surreal for me because like I worked on that scene in The Dark Knight Rises that took place on Wall Street where it was like Bane fighting Batman and everything. And that was a really huge moment for me, being like a huge fan of that franchise.
Yeah.
That was cool. But yeah, I think that's that. And you know what? I was just thinking yesterday, I'm like, man, I got to rewatch that because I feel like so many themes of The Dark Knight, which came out, like 10 years ago, are like relevant now, right?
Oh, yes.
Very scary.
Very, very, very much so. And The Crow is a classic and it's so good. It was so good. So good. And just Brandon Lee was amazing with the stunts and his delivery of that character and just a beautiful creative film. And I just think, musically, I miss the days of the soundtrack. Remember when you used to like see a movie? It's a great soundtrack. Such a great soundtrack.
Nobody does that anymore.
No.
Like, that stinks because I really loved that.
The old soundtracks. That was an awesome, amazing soundtrack to a movie.
9 Inch Nails song on there. Oh, so good. So good.
Now, where can people reach out to you online? Not your personal Gmail, but
not my personal Gmail. Okay, so let me see. My Twitter is @cleveronique37. I'll spell that.
I'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah, you could put it up. And my Instagram is a Norwegian word, Vejas Veronique. I'll send it to you because I know these are very difficult things to spell. I'm a difficult kind of lady.
Not a problem. Veronika, thank you so much for all of your knowledge bombs you dropped on us today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. It was really awesome.
Guys, casting is such a huge part of the filmmaking process, and it's something that people really don't think about, and they just cast their friends, which is fine sometimes, but generally speaking, you want to get professional actors and actors who really know what they're doing, and casting the right actor or actress for the part is so huge. So I hope you got a lot out of this episode with Veronika from Backstage. And again, if you guys want to get a free casting package, literally just use Backstage's amazing resources and get bumped up higher. You get a full $100 package for free. Just go to backstage.com, and when you check out, use the coupon code HUSTLE, and you'll get the whole package for free. And if you want links to anything we talked about in this episode, head over to indiefilmhustle.com/180 for the show notes. Oh, and by the way, I have been getting inundated with letters for the Stephen Pressfield book giveaway contest that I set up a few weeks ago. And I've been waiting to get more and more letters in, and I've just been inundated with a bunch of letters. So I'm going to get the winners out and read them out in a special episode of the podcast coming up soon. And we'll ship out those books and some extra surprises to the winners. So thanks again for everybody's story. It is amazing to hear your stories of triumph and defeating resistance and that little voice in your head that says you can't do it. When you beat that voice and beat him down well, amazing things can happen to you. So as always, guys, keep that hustle going. Keep that dream alive, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening to the Indie Film Hustle podcast at indiefilmhustle.com. That's INDIEFILMHUSTLE.com.